In this video, I'm going to be visiting some real ghost towns in southern Nevada. Each of these places has no more residents. Most of them are pretty easy to access, but some of them are rather difficult, and I wouldn't come here in the heat of summer or in the cold of winter. So let's begin. Our first town is Nivloc, population 0. The town sits at an elevation of about 6,100 feet above sea level. And the name Nivloc is Colvin spelled backwards. Gold was discovered in the area in 1907. There's a handful of buildings that are pretty easy to explore, and the road to get here was not that bad at all. I'm driving a Chevy Equinox. A post office operated here from 1940 till 1943. At its height, it was a small mining camp with just one saloon, a modest scale compared to the larger mining towns. 1,000 people once lived here. And thankfully, this place is fenced off so no one gets hurt. But my favorite thing to visit here was this 120-foot long trestle bridge. The train doesn't come here anymore, but the tracks are still on the bridge. I should also point out, I did see a sign about rattlesnakes in the area. I did not see any. And since I'm by myself, there was no way I'm walking across there to visit the other buildings. And just up the road is Blair. Again, population 0. It was established in 1906 by the Pittsburgh Silver Peak Gold Mining Company. It was home to a 100-stamp mill built in 1907, which was the largest of its kind in Nevada then. This abandoned place is amazing. It must have been the hotel. The post office operated from 1906 until 1915. By 1920, the town was largely deserted. During its heyday, it boasted saloons, a 2-story hotel, a laundry, and even a brewery. "700 people once lived here." The road to get here was very easy. You only have to drive about 1 mile on a gravel road once you leave the paved highway. Since we're in high elevations, it can get very snowy here in the winter. I didn't have the energy to walk up the hill, but it looks like this is where the old mine used to be. And it does look to be pretty dangerous anyway. Our next stop is Coaldale. Population 0. The road to get here was easy because it's on a paved highway. It's at the intersection of US Route 6 and US Route 95. In the 1940s, this gas station was moved from the original town site, which was a couple miles away. The service station and all the buildings closed down in 1993 and have been abandoned since. I'm filming this video in October of 2024. I'm visiting from Saskatchewan. This was the right time to come here because it wasn't too hot nor too cold. If you don't mind telling me where you're watching from, I'd really appreciate that. I can't tell you how thankful I am for all the viewers. It looks like over the years, a lot of people have completely renovated this place. These used to be motel rooms. In 2006, there was a big fire that destroyed many of the buildings. It looks like these motel rooms were part of that fire. Visiting this state for the ghost towns is amazing because of the scenery. It's never boring. Our next stop is Bonnie Claire. Population 0. And the road to get here was pretty easy. You're talking about less than half a mile of gravel road. It's situated in Nye County, near State Route 267, west of US 95. This is the House of Quotes. It's the only abandoned house in town, and people come here and leave quotes on the wall. It must be really popular with hippies, and I gotta admit, I found it to be pretty charming. I didn't have a quote to leave myself. The town began in 1906 to support gold mines in a nearby Slate Ridge area. At one point, it had 2 railroads. Now none of them serve here anymore. By 1914, the mines began to decline, and that was when the town started to die. And across the highway is one of the old mines. This might have been the railroad siding or train station. And the post office closed in 1931. I'm truly fascinated by the fact that you can get this up close and personal to all these buildings without having to pay a toll. And since I'm by myself, I don't take very many risks. Another reason why I like visiting this state is once you get out of the noise and traffic of Las Vegas, it's really peaceful and quiet. Our next stop is Delamar, Nevada. Population 0. This town is located in the central eastern part of the state along the side of the Delamar Valley. It's a really remote site, and it's not easy to get here. The last 5 miles were the hardest road I've ever driven on. I was here in an Equinox, and I probably should have been here with a higher clearance vehicle. So if you are going to come here, be very careful. The town's nickname is the Widowmaker, due to the high number of deaths from cirrhosis, a lung disease caused by inhaling the dust in the area. Gold was discovered here in 1889. There's about a dozen or so of these stone foundations and walls left. There's one here, there's one there, one there, there's one there, there's one there, there. There's one here, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. Here's an example of the road to get here. It took me about 45 minutes to drive 5 miles. And a rock like that can wreck your tire. The heyday for this town was from 1895 to 1900. A devastating fire in 1900 destroyed much of the town. By 1897, the town had grown to over 3,000 residents. It was one of the biggest towns in the state at the time. It had a hospital, opera house, churches, a school, saloons, and a newspaper. And finally, the post office closed here in 1941. And this looks like a car that fell over the cliff. Our next stop is Warm Springs. Population 0. It's located about 45-minute drive east of Tonopah. There's only 2 buildings that's left here, and it was just a small settlement. The town's name comes from natural warm springs in the area. In 1947, someone purchased the springs. And in the 70s, they built a pool, bathhouse, and cafe to attract traffic. Unfortunately, it didn't last long, and now the spring is off limits. The town is also the northern point for the extraterrestrial highway, and we're close to Area 51 now. Our next stop is Rhyolite. Population 0, although I do think there might be somebody who lives in that house part-time in the back. It's located in Nye County, just east of Death Valley National Park. This wasn't a very big jail, but it did look to be very secure. At least the inmates had a really nice view. The population peaked here in 1907 with an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 people. At its peak, it had a lot of modern conveniences like electric lights, piped water, telephones, a hospital, a school, and an opera house. This building was the school. Now we're looking up Main Street. This was the abandoned store. This town crashed really quick. By 1920, only 14 people remained. I think this is a bank vault. And I checked. There's no more money in here. Most of the buildings are fenced off, but there are some places where you can walk around. And this is probably the most famous building of them all. I've been here before to shoot night photography. On one of my visits, I did see some wild donkeys here. And of all the ghost towns I visited on this trip, this was the only one where I saw other visitors. It's not hard to get here. The road is paved. And this is one of the abandoned houses you can still visit. And this is the grandiose train station. I didn't know that 3 different rail lines once serviced this town. This building was used until the 70s, but I think it was a social club. Our next stop is Candelaria. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong, but there was nobody here to ask. It's located in Mineral County. The road to get here was pretty easy, but a lot of it was gravel road. There's not really much left here, and it does look like they raised some of the buildings recently. It was founded in 1864, and the post office closed in 1939. At its peak in the 1880s, about 1,500 to 3,000 residents lived here, and it had 2 hotels and 25 saloons. The railroad doesn't come here anymore. I really like this abandoned business. We're also at a high elevation, so in winter this road could be snowed in. And finally, there's this thing at the intersection of US 90 and Nevada 306. I'm not really sure what it is, but it does look pretty cool. If I was going to guess, this was at one time a service station with a restaurant. And it's right off the highway, so you have no trouble getting here. If you know of any ghost towns in the state that I should visit, please let me know. Stuck. I made a separate video for the ghost towns in the northern part of the state that's already on my YouTube channel. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you do have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below.